The galaxy's apex hunter bowed its head, because a human called it friend. The Void Stalker had no name in any language that mortal tongues could speak. It was death incarnate, a creature born from the spaces between stars where reality grew. Thin and nightmares took shape. For millennia it had hunted across the galaxy, collecting the essences of civilizations like trophies. The Zephyrians called it Keth Moran, the end of songs. The crystalline hegemony knew it as Shardrender. To the Hive Collective it was simply terror beyond comprehension. Every species that had encountered it and survived, a vanishingly small number, described the same thing. A writhing mass of shadows and teeth, reality-warping claws that could slice through quantum barriers and eyes like dying stars that saw straight through to one's soul. It moved through space without ships, breathed vacuum-like atmosphere, and fed on the life force of entire worlds. The Galactic Council's emergency session had been called after the Stalker decimated the Andromedan mining colonies. 3 billion souls gone in a single night. Grand Admiral Zexthul of the Reptilian Defense Force slammed his scaled fist against the holographic display showing the aftermath. 17 star systems evacuated in the past solar cycle, he hissed. Our most advanced warships reduced to cosmic dust. Even our quantum weaponry merely annoyed it. We're facing extinction, and our best military minds have no solutions. The assembled representatives, beings from across the galaxy's most powerful civilizations, sat in stunned silence. The ethereal collective's ambassador, a being of pure energy, flickered with distress patterns. Perhaps we should consider surrender. Offer it selected worlds in exchange for cowardice, spat General Korthak of the warrior clans. We fight until the last breath, until the final star burns out. With what? Zexthul's voice cracked. It's not just immune to our weapons. It seems to grow stronger with each battle. Energy feeds it. Kinetic weapons pass through it. Psionic attacks only make it laugh. That's when the small, pale figure in the corner cleared his throat. Commander David Chen of the Terran Federation had been quietly observing, his expression thoughtful. The other council members barely registered his presence. Humans were the newest species to achieve interstellar travel, their technology decades behind the galactic standard. Has anyone tried talking to it? Chen asked simply. The chamber erupted in disbelief. Translator devices struggled to convey the equivalent of derisive laughter across dozens of species. Human, Zexthul said with barely contained contempt. This creature has devoured civilizations that mastered diplomacy before your species discovered fire. It doesn't communicate, it consumes. Chen shrugged, a gesture that somehow conveyed both humility and stubborn determination. Maybe it's lonely. The silence that followed was deafening. 3 days later, Chen's small exploration vessel, Friendship, dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system, where the Void Stalker had last been spotted. His crew, all volunteers from Earth, monitored their instruments with nervous excitement. Contact, reported Lieutenant Sarah Martinez from the sensor station. Bearing 045 Mark 12. It's massive. On the main screen, the Stalker manifested like a living nightmare. Tendrils of shadow writhed against the star field, occasionally revealing glimpses of something vast and predatory. Reality seemed to bend around it, causing the ship's instruments to flicker and whine. Broadcasting on all frequencies, Chen announced calmly. Hello there. I'm David Chen from Earth. I was wondering if we could talk. The response was immediate and devastating. Waves of pure terror crashed over the ship's psychic shields. The crew doubled over as visions of their worst nightmares flooded their minds. The Stalker's form began to shift, growing larger, more menacing, but Chen remained standing, his weathered face calm. He'd served 3 tours in Earth's resource wars, lost friends to humanity's darkest impulses, and somehow emerged believing in the fundamental capacity for connection. That's quite a greeting, he said conversationally. You know, we humans have a saying, hurt people hurt people. I'm guessing someone hurt you pretty badly once. The psychic assault faltered, just for a moment. I've been reading the reports. About you, Chen continued. Thousands of years traveling alone, destroying worlds. That's gotta be exhausting. When's the last time someone just listened? Something unprecedented happened. The stalker's form began to shift, tendrils drawing back. The cosmic static that surrounded it cleared enough for Chen to make out what might have been a head. You're afraid, Chen realized. All that power, all that destruction. You're terrified of what? Being forgotten, being truly alone? The space around the friendship suddenly filled with images, not projected but somehow downloaded directly into their minds. Chen saw the stalker's origins, a young creature from a dimension where empathy was currency and connection was life itself. He saw the cosmic accident that had torn it from its realm, stranding it in a universe where its very existence caused pain. Every attempt at contact had resulted in death and terror. For millennia, it had wandered, growing more isolated, more desperate, until destruction became its only means of communication. You weren't trying to hurt anyone at first, Chen whispered. You were trying to connect. But every time you reached out, people died, so you stopped trying to be gentle. The massive form began to tremble. Chen stood and walked to the observation deck, placing his hand against the transparent aluminum. It's okay, he said softly. I understand. Sometimes the stronger we are, the harder it is to touch something without breaking it. For the first time in eons, the Void Stalker spoke, not in words but in raw emotion that bypassed language entirely. Loneliness, regret, a desperate hunger not for life force but for understanding. Would you like to try again? Chen asked. Being gentle? I promise if you hurt us, we'll tell you. Humans are pretty good at surviving pain. We've had lots of practice. What happened next became legend across the galaxy. The most feared predator in known space, the nightmare that had ended civilizations slowly, carefully, extended a tendril of shadow toward the small human ship. Not to destroy, but to touch. The contact lasted only seconds. The friendship's shields held, barely. But in that moment, two impossibly different forms of consciousness brushed against each other with something resembling wonder. When the Galactic Council received Chen's report, Admiral Zexthul's first reaction was disbelief. You're telling us that the Void Stalker calls itself Echo now, Chen interrupted. Turns out it's actually quite intelligent and helpful once you get past the existential terror. It's agreed to help evacuate populations ahead of stellar collapses. Apparently it can sense cosmic disasters centuries before they happen. And in return? Chen smiled. We talk to it. Once a week, we just check in, ask how it's doing. Listen to its stories about the early universe. Simple human kindness. The recording ended with an image that would be studied by xenopsychologists for generations. The galaxy's apex predator, a creature of unimaginable power and cosmic horror, gently cradling a small human ship in tendrils of controlled shadow. And somehow, impossibly, both beings seemed at peace. The Galactic Council never did understand how humans had achieved the impossible. They had treaties, weapons, shields, and strategies. But humans had something rarer, the stubborn belief that no one, no matter how different or frightening, was beyond the reach of friendship. And across the galaxy, as word spread of the human, who had tamed the Void Stalker with nothing but empathy and patience, a new phrase began to appear in the databases of 1,000 species. Never underestimate a human's capacity to find common ground with the impossible.